Hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy Day One recap of FinOpsX. Now I'm in San Diego. So this is a show where we talk about AWS, about FinOps, about cost optimization. So this is a pretty neat conference for us. My name is Stephen Barr.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Subramaniam, and I'm feeling so left out. The fact that I'm not in San Diego right now, and really jealous, Stephen, of you being there. I can quite imagine the excitement and fun that's happening on the ground, and tons of very, very incredible conversations that I truly am. I'm feeling like I'm missing out on that. So, yeah, why don't we dive right in? First day of FinOpsX 2025. I was watching the keynote that started yesterday online, and as always, JR started the entire show with "Welcome home."
I like that a lot. And it is a good message for the conference just because when you talk to people who are not from a vendor, but from
Correct.
an org, they are the only person in their org, or they started as the only person in their org, and they have stories of how they had to convince lots of people to come on board in order to be that FinOps champion. And so
Correct.
you can see a lot of people relating to each other in that way. And so to have a lot of people who have similar backgrounds, that was really neat. Some of the notes I
Absolutely.
looked at from the keynote yesterday, 40 of the top 50 or 40 of the top Fortune 50 are here, which that was
Correct. And I think 96 of the Fortune 100, and then pretty much all the cloud, the CSPs are all there and sponsoring the event as well. So, and if you look at the numbers of FinOps practitioners, it's grown almost by a factor of two just over the last year. It's grown tremendously over the years. And just remember, now there are about 90,000 odd FinOps practitioners. This is an org that is just about 5 or 6 years old at this point. So it's come a really, really long way. We've been very lucky to be associated with it since very early on. And it's been an absolutely phenomenal journey to witness.
yeah, absolutely. Now with this year, and I'm guessing most years, all years going forward, AI is going to be a big part of it. And that was certainly JR opened with a slide of, okay, is there going to be, there's two different things. There's FinOps for AI, which is
Right.
how do you think about AI spend? Is it different? Is it the same? Is it just another service? And then also AI for FinOps, which is how do we use AI to be more effective FinOps practitioners? So things like, could you use AI to enforce tagging, for example, or to create
Right.
tags, things like that. So there's two different sides of it. I wanted to start with the
Agreed.
FinOps for AI part. They're working on a certification, and to their credit, the certification is a bit of a moving target.
Yes.
Yeah, how do you pin it down and then plan it out 1 year from now?
Correct. So I think the way they broke it up into multiple levels that are going to come up over the next 3 or 4 years is a good approach, given that AI itself is changing so rapidly. It's really hard to pin down a best practice for today. It sets up some of the basic foundational stuff right now, but as things evolve, so will the education of it. And I think I like the way JR put it. He said, all of these certifications are things that are continuous improvements. You will want to do this on a regular basis. It's not a one time done thing because the technology is evolving, the processes are evolving, and everyone is just playing catch up at this point. So even the best practices and approaches to FinOps effectively in this new environment is going to keep evolving.
Yes, exactly. It's so that's part of. They're not trying to pretend they know something they don't. It's not coming off that way because okay, who knows what AI is going to be like a year into the future? But they
Correct.
hopefully know they don't know. So
Exactly.
that was
So
good.
that's been pretty awesome. Um, what are the other main things that were covered yesterday
Okay, Focus
that got
1.2.
you? That is big.
Yeah,
So that's a huge change. It now adds SaaS and PaaS, um, you know, providers that are supported now in Focus 1.2. That is a big deal. So now you can actually have other PaaS data and SaaS provider data and costs all being, managed in one simple schema, in one simple way.
And including PaaS SaaS-based virtual tokens. So say if you go to a vendor and you exchange dollars for, vendor bucks or vendor coins, and then all of a sudden that's it's effectively a currency. It's a currency you can only put in one place, but it has a value, it has a burn down, it has an exchange rate. And thinking about, so now you can actually track that within Focus 1.2, virtual currencies and other tokens in this. See, the keynote ended with a cloud VP panel, and I think they were talking a lot about AI. Looking at my notes from there, one thing that I thought was neat, and this was from James Greenfield, he said typically you would have your value offering and you'd minimize the cost, right? So you design a car and you'd say, how do I make this car at the cheapest price? But now with Gen AI, what you could say is, well, you can kind of say if you have some digital widget, you can keep dumping value into it through AI enhancements. Supplement it with, some neat model information from Gemini or Perplexity or Claude, and you can really just keep pouring more metadata and augmentation and personalization into it. And so the question is, when do you stop? And so it's the other side of it where you could kind of iterate on the value of these digital content assets. So thinking about the value cost trade-off, but the cost side is actually the more flexible side. Or sorry, the value side is flexible, and you could fix costs. All right, I want this widget to cost 10 cents. How much AI can I dump into it and still break even?
Yeah, I think the dimensions across which you make decisions now is going to increase significantly, because the value itself is now a new lever that you can pull at either the same cost or slightly higher cost. If the value returns are significantly higher, it might justify the costs. You saw a lot less of it in the non-AI era, though some of it existed, but then you tackle that with elasticity. Whenever you have elasticity and a unit price, made sense in that world. Over here, it's not so much about elasticity, it is more about the value delivery. So it's one more dimension to care about and look at. There's so much more to learn. I loved the panel discussion, by the way, and I also loved the concept of new scopes that were discussed right at the beginning of the keynote, where multiple folks came on stage to talk about their experiences, how their scopes had changed, and how these new scopes are now being included in the FinOps practice. Really good examples that were presented over there. Let's see. We also had FinOps and sustainability that came up. Anything interesting over there?
Oh, I hadn't been tracking that side of the talk. What did you see about that?
Okay, so it looks like in the overall assessment in FinOps, a lot of people are now starting to care about their carbon footprint and how to measure it and how to track it and how to kind of monetize it at times. Because if you have carbon credits that you're trading in, that becomes an important currency as well that you do have to take into account, particularly when you're a large provider, when your footprint is fairly large in terms of data centers. You will probably want to account for some of these things. So there were a bunch of different conversations, particularly around FinOps and sustainability and how you account for all of this. So that I thought was quite interesting as well.
Yeah, definitely people are talking about it, and it is just another dimension that you want to optimize, and it's neat to see that there's work being put into it, right? So we're not just sweeping it under the rug, but it's people thinking about it.
Correct. But what's been the vibe on the ground? I think everyone's seen the keynotes. Some of these talks are also available online, but what's the vibe been on the ground?
It's very much, what do we do with AI? It's excited to build stuff. I think that's, it's almost like this more, what can we build with AI? It's amazing. One of the vibe that I got is if people would poll the audience and say, how many people are already using AI in production? And the expectation was that many people are experimenting, but not many people have put it in production yet. But actually, people are already running a lot of production workloads, most of the attendees here, and many of them. And it's, I think, the hope that, okay, we will figure this out as we go. We have to figure it out, but the opportunity of running AI workloads is too good to ignore. I think that will every single AI workload that was talked about now be running a year from now? Maybe not, but you have to experiment. So that's the real vibe about that. And then just figuring out how to account for it. And what's the best? And many companies are also dealing with AI mandates. So figuring out how to invest in these AI projects and build centers of excellence.
Got it. No, absolutely. A lot of that is happening. Again, I'm feeling very jealous that I'm not there on the ground meeting up with all these amazing folks. A lot of these folks we've built relationships over a few years. We've been meeting them regularly at these events. And I miss talking to them in person. But you are there on the ground, so I'm sure you'll have more anecdotes, more stories to tell as the week progresses. Anything to look forward to today?
Yeah, well, I wanted to cover a little bit more of what went over yesterday. I went to Yuri's talk. He presented with Diana, I don't know her last name, Diana from Lockheed, Casaboulos. And it was really neat because I think that part of what it comes down to is you still have to remember the fundamentals, which are like unit economics and tagging, how to do resource allocation. Yuri had a great example of sometimes you have account level where you're paying, each account is a different payer, or sometimes you're doing tag-based splitting within an account, or are you doing resource or telemetry-based splitting where you have a shared server, but different people can use it and pay portions of it, and that's the hardest. And so there's a lot of, we talk about AI, but the flip side of that is you still have to know you don't escape unit economics, and you don't escape, just at the end of the day, people still have to know what you're paying for, and also what are the different units of billing for AI. Steph Gooch and Adam Richter gave a great talk about that. How with Amazon, there's the several levels, or at one level it's like you have your SageMaker, which is hourly, or you have managed services like Bedrock, or you have very high level platforms like Q, and they each have their own pricing models. And so making sure that your AI spend, that you're taking into account spend across these three levels, which will probably all show up in a big enough organization.
Yeah, true.
And then I guess a neat thing that's kind of a plug for CloudFix in the cloud intelligence dashboards. It was really neat because a lot of the things that they are monitoring for are things that we also do finder fixers for, like DynamoDB and frequent access, the Elasticache switching to Valkey, showing cost optimization hub recommendations, that sort of thing. So that was really neat. Extended support, that's a big one, and we have a finder fixer for that will remind you that that's happening, so that way your RDS, EKS, or OpenSearch costs don't double overnight.
Yeah. No, these are all huge. And if CloudFix is probably the easiest way to kind of get started with all of these without having to do too much heavy lifting. As you learn more about your environment and kind of, graduate around the maturity of your FinOps practice, CloudFix could actually be a very valuable tool in getting there. What are the interesting highlights that you're looking forward to today?
Well, the keynote is starting shortly, and actually, I'll pull up my agenda. I want to have a look. Give me 1 second here. I think I could put this on the screen. Let me try that. Okay. Yep, day 2 keynote. So FinOps for AI, AI for FinOps. This is starting relatively soon. Then looking at the talks that I set aside under my agenda here. Okay, what's new with cost optimization with Rick Oakes and Jimmy Yang and Liam Greenemeyer? That's going to be, we use AWS cost optimization, particularly Compute Optimizer, quite a bit. And it's neat to see they're continually iterating. There's a ton of momentum behind it. One thing that was a great discussion, which was part of the panel yesterday and part of what Rick and his team are working really hard on, is how do you build trust in these recommendations?
Right.
A really big thing. And we could testify from having implemented thousands of these recommendations. They are very conservative, and a lot of smarts and intelligence goes in there to make sure it won't break your application at the 99 or 99.5% level.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So that's neat. I do want to do FinOps in the data center by Meta. I'm just curious, what they talk about. That's kind of under the Cloud Plus banner.
Right. Correct.
I'm very curious about that. There's also AI Dreams Big, FinOps Keeps the Receipts. And that's a great title. This is a fireside chat. Kim Floss from Pepsi and Lisa Gerger from Northup talking about the balance of AI innovation and financial accountability. So that the problem is those two are at the exact same time, so I haven't quite decided yet. There is the Scaling FinOps Governance talk that I'll go to in Breakout A, and then, of course, FinOpsX Official Party. There is a little bit of, I wish it was on the aircraft carrier. It's not on the aircraft carrier, but they are great at events, so I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's going
I'm sure it'll be awesome.
That. And then there's a few other customer meetings, there's luncheons that will be happening, in the background of all this. So I'm looking forward to those as well.
That's really awesome. Yep, we're going to come back and keep everyone informed about everything that's happening on the ground. If you have questions, please feel free to ping us. We'd be more than glad to respond and let you know what's going on. And Stephen, from my end, you're going to say hi to everyone over there. Tell them that I missed them, and I will see them soon.
And I was thinking, if it was just a big party and we didn't even talk about tech or FinOps or anything, it was just a reunion, it'd still be worthwhile, because it's so.
That's absolutely true.
All these friends, they're my friends, and
exactly,
it's great. I really just enjoy being here. And of course, if we're all going to get together, we're going to talk shop. But it's so nice to also catch up when everyone's lives outside of it. That's just part of being in a nice, warm community.
Exactly. Awesome. Anyway, you have a great day 2 keynote, Stephen, and we'll be back soon with updates of day 2. So
absolutely. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.